Hello there, I'm Scotty, you're not, and here we are. The final flash review I have to do before the premiere of the final season of The Flash. We're on season 8 of The Flash, and much like last season, they are separated into graphic novels, but I guess Eric Wallace wanted to do more with this one, so there's 3 graphic novels, and the problem with that is, yes, last season there was technically 3, but the first 3 episodes of that was finishing off the previous season because it wasn't able to finish. But this is 3 separate story arcs. And with some fillers in between. They originally had 18 episodes for this season, but the CW bumped it up to 20. And so you think, okay, 2 more episodes. Cool. Both of those episodes are filler. I think they are The Curious Case of Bartholomew Allen and Lockdown. Those are the 2 most fillery ones in the season and that don't have really too much connection. But, yeah. And carrying on from last season, we start off the first arc, with Armageddon. Thing with filler, though, I'm going to talk about filler for a minute. I get that filler is like a way to calm down things between story arcs. My problem with it is that especially when you're watching this live on TV, you finish one story arc and okay, what's going on next? And then just the next 3 episodes are bullshit. Episodes that you just don't care about. There's very little that adds to the over arc of what's going on. And once you finally get to this next story, okay, let's do this. Cool. And you get that done. And then there's more filler. And you're like, I just want to get to the next story. Why do I have to sit through all this bullshit? Just get to the next story. And while one of the fillers in the second half of the season is connected, like Eric Wallace is like, oh, all the filler it's not total filler. There is some connection. Bullshit. There are 2 episodes where you take like one thing from it and add it to another episode. We didn't need 2 extra episodes. I'm just saying it's a little frustrating to me. But 3 arcs. All right, we have Armageddon, we have the Deathstorm arc, and then we have the Negative arc. So those are our 3 graphic novels with some filler in. And so we start with Armageddon, which features an alien named Despero coming to Earth. He played by Tony Curran, which was a good casting. He was Van Gogh. And it's Van Gogh, Doctor Who creators. Who the hell thought Conan Vincent Van Gogh was a good idea? What? It's Van Gogh. I watched that episode of Doctor Who, and I get frustrated because they keep Conan Vincent Van Gogh. It's Van Gogh. Say it right, or don't say it at all. There. Anyway, played Vincent Van Gogh in Doctor Who during series 5, I think 5 or 6, whatever. It's the 11th Doctor. So he's the villain here. I don't like what they do with Despero because at first he's like, I come from the future, 2031, and in the future, Flash you caused Armageddon, and I'm here to stop it. And then he explains his whole story about how he led a rebellion on his planet against the evil force, and it cost his planet. He was the only one left, so he came to adopt Earth as his new planet, and now he's trying to save it. But they were like, nah, this guy has to be a villain. So by the end, Barry's just like, you lied. I know, he's like, oh, you lied, and you're the villain. You're the guy who turned on the people, not them. And it's never actually confirmed by Despero. All he says is, I did what I had to do. No, you didn't need, no. And the whole conclusion of this is done so he can have a fight with Despero. But they're like, oh, well, we set him up to where he's actually like an anti-hero and not a villain, so they wouldn't have to fight once Armageddon is done. Once, Armageddon is prevented, it's proven that Armageddon's not going to be prevented, No, they just like, oh no, he's the villain. He's been the villain the whole time, and he's the one who destroyed his planet. That is the most bullshit way to retcon so that you can have a villain versus hero fight at the end of your big story. And it's just really, I don't know. But anyway, Armageddon Arc, Despero comes back from 2031 and tells Barry he's going to destroy the world in 2031, cause Armageddon. And so he's there to stop him. But Barry is planning on proving that he doesn't cause it. Weird stuff starts to happen, like he loses time. There's one time he goes to face off against this meta, but he ends up destroying Caitlin's apartment or someone's apartment. I think it's his apartment, actually. I don't know. An apartment. And then other weird things like Star Labs is shut down due to a nuclear leak. And he's fired from the CCPD because he's apparently Sunshine's accomplice working for Carver back then. He was the mole, but we all know that was Singh, but you can't really, it wasn't really him. And even then, couldn't you say, well, maybe it was a mirror copy of me, but that never happened, so I don't know. I do think they handled Kramer better this season. She was way easier to tolerate now that they're done making her this, I'm gonna do what I want type character, and but this, I remember when I first saw this, I'm like, what? No. What? Huh? And this ends up being all plot by the Reverse Flash, who, if you remember, was brought back at the end of the last season. And yes, it's him again. And it's like, can we just let him go? Like, are we done? Because like they first he was completely destroyed, and then they brought him back, and like, okay, he's got to come back at some point, and he's just back right away. It's revealed that he created his own Flashpoint, a reverse Flashpoint, where he went back and he killed Barry, which changed things, and he got struck by the lightning and turned himself into the Flash. And so everything has been setting up, and he's the Flash. By the way, are they cheap or lazy? Because every time they go into the future, there is very minimal done with makeup effects to make them look older. Like, they go into 2031, everyone looks the same. Like, Iris is supposed to be in her 40s, and she looks the same. Like, this is 10 years later. They're already at 30. She should be 40. And she looks the same in 2031. So does everyone else, except Chester's hair is longer. But no one else has aged at fucking all. And they do it again later when they go to 2049. And it's like, Jay looks the same as he does in 2021 in the current time. It's like, his hair should be like white at least. That long. And like with Iris in the future, she doesn't look that much different. Yeah, and there's another case later that we'll talk about that. As far as a take on this kind of episode, they failed. But I'm just saying, there's no change. Like, not even for Eobard, who's supposed to be, I know he's a speedster, but still. Yeah. And so our first hero shows up in part 1, and that's Ray Palmer, who's there for a tech con. He's pointless, really. They don't utilize these guest characters well at all. Because he's there, and most of his conflict is with Chester over training new tech peoples, and he doesn't want to do it, and then he relents and says, okay, we're going to, it's going to be called the Quincy P. Runk Foundation, which they both have P in them, and like, whatever. Based off his father. Cool. Part 2, the only one we have is a cameo from Alex Danvers from Supergirl. And then part 3, I think at the end of that part 2 as well, is Black Lightning. And part 3 is in Black Lightning. Black Lightning is in part 3, excuse me. Barry summons him with the Injustice Protocol, which is a not video game and a comic arc where Superman goes evil. And so he says, Barry says he's going to be the one to start Armageddon, so they're going to take his Speedaway. And at the end of that is when he goes to the future. And we get Cameo Fest #2. We get Ryan Choi, or the Atom as he is in this time. And Alex Danvers again. And not Batwoman, Jessica Leslie. I will never call her Batwoman. Ryan Wilder is not Batwoman to me. To me, season 1 is the only season that exists. Like I said, maybe at some point I'll watch the other 2 seasons and it'll change. But to me, they ruined that show, and they had the easiest way to do it. Just recast the role, but they said, nope, we're not woke enough. So not only are we going to have a lesbian character, which is fine, we got to make her black and make an entirely new character. Now, I'm not against that at all, but that's what they were thinking. They're like, hey, instead of recasting, why don't we try to make this show about this kind of community more? So we'll make the lead African American, which is fine. Black Lightning did that. Didn't care for the racist overtones in that show. Maybe it changed, but I'm just saying, I hate what they did to Batwoman, because to me, they should have just recast Kate Kane. And then what they did with Kate Kane, they did recast her with the Sean, whatever her name is, the chick from Krypton. They recast her with that actress. But it's a whole nother story that's confusing. No, you're saying, Scotty, you didn't watch Bat Season 1. I know things because I was in a Batwoman group, and the stuff I kept seeing, I left. And then the DC on the group chat, DC group, whatever chat, started spoiling it there too. I'm like, come on. I don't want to hear about Batwoman. But yeah, she's in this too. And there is hints at something that, in one episode, episode 4 is completely pointless. They're in the future, right, in 2031, an alternate timeline that is not going to exist anymore once Barry fixes it. And they do all this character development with characters like Allegra and Chester, who have this sort of love thing going on. And so the whole love thing comes to a head here, where they tell each other they're in love, which look on Caitlyn's face is funny. But then doesn't mean anything, because this timeline doesn't exist anymore. And then there's things where you see that Ryan and Sophie are going to adopt. Who cares? Not going to exist anymore. And yeah, everything with the character development in that alternate arc in episode 4, not at all important, except for one thing that may be a nod. Because Ryan Wilder, not Batwoman, hands Iris a special blaster thing that they say came in handy when a special woman in red showed up, which is a nod to the fact that in the next season they are going to do ruin Red Death, because they're making it Batwoman Red Death. And as you know, my opinions on Batwoman right now, not exactly happy for that. And I know what you're saying, well, you couldn't do it with Batman because, stuff. My big problem is Barry doesn't know the new Batwoman. And what they could do is just retcon, yeah, I heard about you, I know you. But he doesn't know her. He doesn't know her. And if they just somehow know each other when this next season starts, sure, there's been some time they could meet, but no. They don't know each other, so it doesn't mean anything. If it was Kate Kane's, it would mean something. Even if it could be Oliver, and you're saying, well, no, it has to be a Batman. People, Arrow is the Batman of the Arrowverse. He fought against Deathstroke. He fought against the League of Assassins. Or League of Assassins. He's basically done what Batman did in other comic book universes. So having an evil version, and people say, oh, that takes away from what his sacrifice and stuff. Not really, because it's not going to be the same one. It's going to be a different version. When we get to season 9 and they do this, maybe they change my mind, but I was very upset when I saw set photos and I'm like, no, come on. you're gonna ruin Red Death with this, then just don't do it at all. Okay, if you can't do it right, don't do it at all. And they could change my mind on this, but I'm just saying. So yeah, that's part 4. No character development really needed, but Barry goes to the future to see how Armageddon happens, and he finds out the future universe. Again, no one is aged, but Eobard is going to marry Iris in this universe. They're not married yet, but they're following the same story arc, but they have it married in 2031. And they're almost, Kavanaugh is almost 60, but I don't know. It's very weird. We also get a sort of origin for the Reverse Flash here, but not yet. It's revealed that Damien Dark helped the Reverse Flash, or Eobard Flash here, and so Barry convinces him to help bring Nora, like his Nora. There's too many Noras in this universe. Back, Nora Dark back, because she's dead in this universe and he's alive. It's supposed to be the other way around. So they use the time stone with this other thing that Chester invented, and they have to do the whole Iris believes him because they have that spark, which they talk about later in the season. And so yeah, that's the whole thing. And then so it goes back, and he has to create Armageddon to go back. But I feel like that's a cop-out, because specifically Despero said the Flash creates Armageddon, which technically Barry is the Flash, but in this instance, he's the Reverse Flash, new suit and everything. So it's kind of a cop-out, even though Eobard is chasing right after him. We're not done. Part 5 is a part of Armageddon, but it's really not. It's disconnected. So Eobard survived, and he's back, and this time he's fading. And so publicly, he asked the Flash to save him, because if he does it publicly, and he can't just let him die. But Barry and Iris want to let him die, which, as we come to find out, is the right decision. Like, at the beginning of this, when I first watched it, I remember being like, yeah, let him die. And then Joe comes in, pissed off. Barry, Iris, like, we do not let people die. And I'm like, yeah, but this guy has killed many people. Like, it's the trial of the episode, honestly, but, like, no one should be defending this guy. Everyone should want this guy to die, but no, we have to save him. And then Despero comes in and says, if you don't let him die, I will destroy the entire city so that he dies, which goes against what he said. Like, he said, he has to cease to exist or he could come back. Well, if you blow him up, he could still come back. Like, he's like, well, you could kill him. No, he has to cease to exist or he could come back. And it's like, well, you just threatened to blow up the entire city, so if you blow up the entire city, he could still come back now, couldn't he? So your logic makes no sense here. 18 minutes in, I'm still in the first part. I had that rant about Batwoman. But, yeah. And we get our origin. He said that the reason he hates him so much is because he strived all his time to become a speedster. 2 centuries from now, which doesn't make any sense to me. 2 centuries from now, I strive to become a speedster. And on my time for my big debut, you swoop in and save the day. No, the Flash would be dead 2 centuries from now. No matter how much his speed, like, holds back his aging, there's no way he'd last 2 centuries. You could say he time traveled, but why would he? And being as you just told him what happened, it makes it seem like Barry did it on purpose. Now that he would know. I don't understand why they have to make Eobard come from so far in the future. Because it makes no sense. The Flash would not be around. And if it was, it wouldn't be Barry as the Flash. doesn't make any sense to me every time I do that. 2 centuries from now. No, he wouldn't be alive 2 centuries from now. Speed Force or not. It doesn't work that way. Now, yeah, basically, he's jealous. Basically, that's what it is. And so Barry comes up with the idea to take Eobard's speed away, which will save him, I guess. And it works, but he's pissed. And they put him on the Lian-Yu, which you find out later. So that's the end of Armageddon. They're still Despero, but Barry takes care of Despero pretty quick, I think. They sever his connection to the flame of Pytar. And despite the fact that it appeared he would be back, that's it, I guess. Although it would make sense that he would come back in the final arc, but he never did. But and then we have 2 fillers. Impulsive Excessive Disorder, which is a time travel filler with Excess and Impulse of Bart and Nora. Nora and Bart. They find out that some things have changed in 2049, such as their Jay Garrick is alive now, but he's married to someone named Rose. And Joan Garrick has been wiped from the timeline, which wouldn't happen because she still existed when they changed the timeline in 2021. So how could she be wiped from the timeline? Like I can say she died, but they say she just never existed. Which doesn't make any sense to me. Like, you changed a timeline where she still existed. Or like Armageddon did that, but she was still, I don't know. It's very confusing. I don't know. And we don't know if something they changed by stopping Godspeed or something that changed Armageddon. Who knows? But yeah, that's what it is. They go back to 2013 when Barry's still in a coma. It's a flashlight. It's a flashlight episode where Flash is barely in there. You see Barry in a coma. But other than that, nothing. And we're introduced to a couple of things that nods to the future here. Avery Ho, which is called Avery, but it's confirmed it's Avery Ho, and Fast Track Labs. And Avery and Bart have a thing going on, even though she's robbing the cradle because she's technically like decades younger than she is, but and then Lockdown has a return of I Like the Metal, Daddy Like the Metal. Goldface as he takes over CCPD, and this one is complete filler. This is why I think this is one of the bonus ones, because it's just filler. It's filler. And so, yeah, Goldface, all this does is that Kramer finds out that Barry is a Flash, which she already figured out. So I do like that, though. She goes, "One thing, I want to show you my identity." She's like, "Alan, I know it's you." He's like, "What?" He's like, "How?" He's like, "Well, I found this thing that was on your wrist, and only person that can go to the Flash to go fast enough together is the Flash." So she figured it out. And so then, from episode 8 to episode 13 is the Deathstorm arc, which I think is another one that wasn't handled right. I felt like they could have handled it better. There are mysterious fires happening, like people are mysterious deaths, and they think the Hotness, aka Jocko Birch, who is introduced in season 4, he's been in jail for all this thing. He now has a son, which didn't exist past season 4, but that might have changed because of Crisis. And I'm like, wait a minute, this kid, and they say the kid's almost 18, so I did the math, and so Jocko would have been 19 when the kid was born, so it kind of makes sense. They're just pushing the line, though. And the actor looks like he's in his 20s, though, I don't know. But, yeah. And they eventually find out that it's this blue flame made from cold fusion. And who do we know that was created by cold fusion? Firestorm. So, yeah. But it's not handled right, I don't think. People start seeing we find out that it feeds off grief because a ghost of Chester's father shows up and tries to convince him to, you know, to give up on his grief or whatever, but Chester fights back. And then the blue flame thing appears to Caitlin with Ronnie's voice. And so Caitlin comes up with an idea to use the quantum splicer to bring Ronnie back. Now, my theory is that at some point, Ronnie was still in there. And what was left of Ronnie was appealing to Cecile, trying to tell them to let him die. But Caitlin wants to use the splicer and basically forces the splicer, which they say, oh, if he doesn't want it to happen, force on it, it could be catastrophic, but, you know, it works. And Ronnie's back, or so we think, but we find out it was never Ronnie, which to me, you could have done better. It's like, no, like, it's not Ronnie, it was never Ronnie. I'm like, well, you could have implied it was. Because, like, the whole thing was that he's created from Ronnie when he separated inside the Singularity end of season 2. All you needed to do was set that up at the end of Armageddon. When Barry creates Armageddon to come back to the past, it opens up another Singularity, which could be the conflict, and then Pytar guy, Despero, uses the Flame of Pytar to close it. It goes into the Singularity and uses it, and something falls, which they think is Despero, but it's Ronnie. And then you spend the next few episodes kind of recreating Ronnie to the group, and then there's these flames, and Ronnie's like, it's something that's following me, something evil, but he's the something evil the whole time. And you could have built that he was corrupted within the Singularity to make him evil. And it would have worked. And it meant more, really, with the whole Caitlin storyline. By the way, Caitlin starts dating this guy named Marcus, Dr. Ficus. I guess his name is Marcus Ficus. I thought that was just a nickname that Chillblaine gave him, but Marcus. And then once she finds out her husband's getting back, she's like, oh, we got to break up, until this whole thing with him is done. And he's like, then what? You have your husband back. What's for me? Basically, like, I think maybe they could have done better. They could have done better, like this whole Ronnie thing. And now she's conflicted because of Marcus, and then when he turns evil, like, I realize I do need to move on and we can be together, but Marcus just disappears at this point. And look, Caitlin's dating history just never, they just don't let her have a happy ending, do they, when it comes to dating? She was with Ronnie, he died. She kind of with Jay, or Hunter Zolomon, he's evil. And then she's with Julian, he fucks off at the end of season 3. Now Dr. Ficus, evil husband comes back. It's just, they don't let her have a relationship. It sucks. Like, Barry and Iris is the only successful relationship we have because it has to be. And everyone else, we got Joe and Cecile, which, by the way, they mentioned Jenna a lot. But it's starting to get very frustrating that she's never around. And they just keep making excuses. Oh, I just put Jenna to bed. Oh, Jenna has a play date. I dropped Jenna's up at her first day of preschool. We never see her after she was born. Like, she was born, and we've never seen her. And so it's very frustrating. They're too cheap to hire a child actress to play the role, so they just keep pussyfooting around it. And it's very frustrating. People keep saying, why don't we see Jenna? Why don't we see Jenna? And they're just too cheap to hire an actress. Which, with the COVID situation, I get it. You could hire a Canadian actress, kid actress to do it, but, who knows. So eventually, they figure out that they have to amp up Killer Frost with a machine to make her part with the cold fusion like him and to fight him. And this fight sucks. Okay, they fly in the air, they have a little fight, and then she just pulls off the crown of Splicer and he goes, and then she sucks up the thing. Like, this is the only big fight we get here, and it sucked. Like, you get some kind of thing between them, but it sucked. It really does. And then the ultimate middle finger, they kill off Frost, which I remember when this happened, I first saw it, and I feel the same way now. You didn't need to do this. Like, it's so inconsequential. Like, she dies because she absorbed all that and it killed her. But you just don't write that then. You just don't write that in the script. You just don't have that happen. There doesn't need to be a side effect. And I don't understand because they're just doing another Frost thing for the next season. And it's very confusing. I don't understand why they did it. Maybe to nerf Barry in this last part, but it doesn't, it's confusing. And so then we have the next set of filler. We have the funeral episode for Frost, which only sets up Caitlin to want to create her again. And then there is Into the Still Force, which out of all of these fillers is the most important because Iris has been dealing with this time sickness since the latter half of season 7, which is going to be a very big plot hole once we get to this final arc because what they say makes no fucking sense. Okay? But during the first, after Armageddon, Iris and Sue Dearborn go to Coast City, home of Aquaman, to find this ghost girl, which turns out to be Phantom Girl or Tinia Wazo, who is looking for her mother. And all the while, weird things are happening to Iris. She's missing, like, minutes, and jumping through time, and things are disappearing and stuff like that. And then she accidentally makes Tinia's mom disappear, so Tina makes her disappear. But then she comes back, and then she disappears again. And then Barry goes into the Still Force with Dion, or who he thinks is Dion, to track down this particle that he put inside her. When they find it, he takes it and turns on Barry. And it turns out that this is actually negative Dion, because the other forces, except for the Speed Force Nora, were infected by the time sickness. But we can't go into the next arc yet because we have the Curious Case of Benjamin Allen, the worst episode of the season, except for the stuff with Joe and Sing. Because they're talking about getting older and Joe is retired and he's like, what's he going to do? You know, because they're trying to show him D&D because Chester likes to play D&D and get everyone to play it. But Joe has no idea how to play it. I'd be the same thing. I'd be like, what, the who, the what now? And so, yeah. Why can't we just play Spades? Spades is a game. You know, why can't we just play checkers? No, that's a game. But then Sting comes in and they fix a Roomba, which breaks. And then, you know what, let's go out and calm down. And basically they have a talk. And that's all the good stuff in that episode. The other one, the title would lead you to believe that it's going to be an episode where Barry turns old. There's an episode of Supernatural called The Curious Case of Dean Winchester, where there's this warlock guy who is betting people's years in life. And if they lose, which they always do, they become old. And so here you think that's what happened. We get Dr. Peter. I don't know. We get some dude who I've never seen before show up. And he hits Flash with his beam that's supposed to age him. However, because, again, they're too cheap to do aging effects, he ages from the inside because he's the Flash. And so he looks the same, but he's really aging on the inside. Bullshit. It's a cheap way. Oh, wait, he's the Flash. He wouldn't age. So it only affects him on the inside, but not on the outside. He gets a little gray here, but that's it. And then towards the end of the episode, when he's fighting the guy, he looks really gray underneath the mask, but that CGI effect, that's it. Why couldn't we have an old man Flash going around? Why not? Like, they just say, oh, his body parts, his insides are old, but he doesn't age on the outside. Cheap, lazy. You don't want to spend money on effects for it, so you're just gonna do it. That no, it pisses me off every time. It's only the second time I watched it, but it pisses me off. It's like, why couldn't they spend money to do it? Supernatural was another CW show. Like, they hired an actor. They hired an older actor to play the older Dean. You could have just done that. But they did old action on Dr. Peter Pumpkin Eater over there. But, you know, then we get the final arc, which is the negative arc, which is the most trickiest one. There's a new speedster in town, which turns out to be Mina Dawan, a.k.a. Fast Track. Hence, Fast Track Labs. And there is a scene where she's on the phone with Avery, but we never see Avery again, which is kind of confusing because you think you would. Then again, it'd be like the same actress, and you'd be like, wait a minute, it's been 8 years, she hasn't aged a day. What the hell? But, no, we don't see her. But, because of the new speedster, Barry goes to the NU to check up on Thawne, but Thawne doesn't have any speed. And then we get the whole conclusion to the John Diggle Green Lantern arc, and who cares at this point? They were never going to go through with it. He says no, the box explodes. Yeah, who cares? The episode, I think that's actually the next episode, but The Man in the Yellow Tie. Mina talks about her partner that she's working with and introduces. Barry goes undercover as himself, saying the Flash sent him because he didn't, fully trust her yet. And we discover there's an Eobard Thawne there. It's the Matt Lesher Eobard Thawne, which they say is the. They tell us he's the one from Flashpoint, which he can't be, because the one from Flashpoint is dead. You see, the one from Flashpoint got away in Short of My Legend Season 2, and then he was killed by the Black Flash. They even say this, but then Barry's still adamant this is the one from Flashpoint. You just said he was killed by Black Flash. Now you're saying it's the same one. Make up your mind. Alright, but he has no memory. So he's not evil, but he still creates this machine. And the machine actually generates the negative Speed Force, which Mina does tap into and becomes evil there for a while. But, yeah. Then Dion shows up in the NU and kills that Eobard Thawne. And says it's all part of the plan. Yeah. So now we got the 2-part episode Negative, where it's revealed the negative Speed Forces, the negative forces, I should say, and borrow from the Speed Force, because there is no Speed Force. They say that when Barry got rid of all of Thawne's speed, which I should say that took forever for Black Lightning to take Barry's speed, but Barry just takes Eobard Thawne's speed very quickly. But anyway, so yeah, when he did that, there was no negative Speed Force. There was no avatar for the negative Speed Force, so that's gone. Which is fine, because we just did the evil Nora in the last one. So, there's that. But yeah, and Iris is still gone. And one big complaint people had is that, well, during this arc, Barry seems to not care. Of course he cares. He's just distracted. He's busy. There's so much going on in this. But, yeah. So, but you got Barry, and then in this beginning of this 2-parter, Iris shows up in 2049 with Bart and Nora, who are talking to the future version of their mother, which looks like she has some kind of grayness to her hair. But then, like, does she look younger to you? And I'm like, why? No one ages no matter what decade they're from. Why would you even ask that? Yeah, and when Nora tries to speed her back, the Still Force stops her, which is part of the plan. But Nora's able to go back and tell them that dang with her. And then Barry's like, you need to go back with Bart. And if it's going to be a big complaint, is that they had a way to do this great speedster fight, and they ruin it. They do. They really do. Anyway, So, Barry helps Mina transfer some of her speed into Eobard so that they could take on the forces. Which, while they're trying to do this, though, Allegra. Oh, speaking of Allegra, there's a whole episode. I think it's in the Curious Cage of our. I don't know. It's into the spiel. Still no. It's the beginning of Keep It Dark. It's one of the episodes where I think it's Keep It Dark because Barry's doing this secondary thing in that finding the speedster. Where it's the whole thing where they're facing off against the Aranyas, which I haven't heard them call that before this. They're basically just it's supposed to be a group of evil women. It's basically the new Dr. Light and Sunshine, and they're trying to go after Allegra and this other chick who she like everything with the whole CCPD thing with them pushing against Allegra. She's now a new employee. She's like a new second in command, I guess, and everyone she tries to tell them, and it's like, no, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this. No, I want you to do this. No, I think I'm gonna do this. I don't care. I really don't care. Yeah, it makes me mad. They should be listening to her because I appointed her, but I don't care. I really don't care. It comes full circle, and I respect her after this episode, but this episode, I only care about the very stuff, not this, but So yeah, so Mina shares their speed with Eobard, who's in the Reverse Flash costume, as they all face the forces. Barry is ready to shoot lightning at the forces after the other two have kind of bonded them together, but Dion flashes an Iris, and she's hit by the lightning, and she dies in Barry's arms. She turns into still force particles and goes into Eobard Thawne. And folks, what happens next shocked people. Even me. Even though I knew that Eobard was going to come back because of some spoilery photos that people keep posting in the groups. He rips his face off, revealing, I don't think you needed to have the reverse flash mask on him, but it's revealing the other version of Eobard Thawne, the Tom Cavanaugh version. And one thing that frustrates me about this, you had Matt Lesher there. Why do you have to keep going back to Tom Cavanaugh as the ultimate Thawne? You had Matt Lesher. He could have been the villain. And it was very confusing because I saw these pictures of the black-suited Eobard Thawne, played by Tom Cavanaugh. And when the Matt Lesher Thawne showed up, I'm like, wait, then why are they going to do... Well, maybe it's because there's going to be two of them. This is the good one, that's the evil one. But they just did that. And once I found out what they were using that one to create the other one, they're telling us a Cavanaugh version is better, which... I don't think they are. I don't think he is. But, yeah, it's very frustrating. It's very frustrating for me. Hold on a minute. Someone was banging something out there. But anyway, so now we have the Tom Cavanaugh Thawne back. And then the forces put all their powers into him, and he becomes negative Reverse Flash, which I know is an oxymoron, but that's what I call it. He's Black Reverse Flash. I don't know. That sounds weird. But, yeah. Also, I want to mention that Cecile is getting other powers. And it's revealed that she's taking other people's powers because Bashir, or the Sage Force, is trying to connect with her. So they're using that, and he gets back, and then he uses that to connect to his mask, bring the others back, and then Top and Queen. Yeah, I should mention, they bring back and retcon the Royal Flush game. Now, this is post-crisis Royal Flush game, but they say that in 2013, the Royal Flush game was created from the Particle Accelerator explosion. And this is the Royal Flush gang that's always existed, which is bullshit because we had a Royal Flush gang on Arrow before the show even happened. But it's post-crisis, so they retcon things, of course. And I'm already getting sick of it. I'm like, okay, I get it. You want to have your new version of stuff, that's fine, but let's have new stuff instead of recycling stuff and having new versions of it. Like, so, like I said, Bashir is able to get the good forces out, and they connect to Barry. Now, you may be asking, Scotty, what about the other speedsters? Well, let me tell you, it's bullshit. Okay, so you have Barry, Mina, and the kids, right? And they're there, and Thawne's just like, uses the still force, freezes them, sends them a billion years in the past. Bye! Yeah, I'm like, what? Why can't they all fight against Thawne? Why? Why do they have to get sent, and why? And so the forces then reconnect with Barry, and he's like super strong Flash, and so they're fighting, which is causing, you guessed it, Armageddon all over again, which is, it's not 2031, but okay. And this is where the return of Pytar Man should have happened. Despero should have happened. He should have returned and helped them stop Thawne. I told you so, but I don't know, but the way it's handled. So anyway, Iris is supposedly dead. She's actually trapped in a time stone. The time stone they use, the Barry and Damien Dark used to get back. Damien Dark still existed for a while, and then when he gave a time stone to Joe, he went away, and Nora came back, which is really weird. That she was just there for that. It's no. But Joe kept the time stone, which sets up this, where Iris is in it. And then Jay and Joan Garrick from 2049 show up. Like, they're present day versions of them. What if they're the future versions of them show up? But they do, because they were involved in stuff in the future at this time with Iris and stuff. And Iris is freed. She frees herself, because independent woman, baby. Frees herself from the stone, and then shows up to stop Barry because they're causing Armageddon. So Barry does this thing he learned earlier in the season where he basically goes, "Oh, my legs are killing me," and it defeats Reverse Flash that way, which is a big criticism people had, and I do too. Why can't he just fight Reverse Flash? Why doesn't he? Like, you could have just had all the speedsters together, because, dig this, if all the forces are back together, that would power up the Speed Force. So Barry and the kids should at least have that power. Add Mina D1's power with it, it should work. But no. Barry's got to be Dalai Lama, Gandhi. That's what I meant. Gandhi. I would not fight you. And just, he's gone. And he's gone for good. There's no more negative Speed Force for now. We get a hint at what Caitlin might become. We don't know. She's building this machine in her apartment, which Barry destroys, but then thanks to Mark, hi Mark, they fix it, and it's a long review. And then they're like, Barry and Iris are kind of cuddling, and she's like, the negative Speed Force is going to find a new avatar. It was when they do, we ready. And so it jumps to 2049. There's this blue crystal, which supposedly hints at Cobalt Blue. And if it's not Eddie Thawne, Eddie Thawne, I don't care. They've had 9 fucking years to do Cobalt Blue, and they're waiting till now. And Eric Wallace said that they planned this whole thing with Thawne to be a finale. Like, this was supposed to be the series finale, because they didn't know if they would get renewed until like a couple weeks before this aired. So this was sort of a series finale. So I wonder if like next season is just going to feel like extra stuff, because Supernatural did that too with season 5. That was supposed to be the finale Kripke wanted, but they'd already, CW was like, nah, give us a season 6. So it was like, oh, okay, but we got this great finale that now is sullied because you want to continue. So I wonder if it's going to feel like that like, oh, maybe, other shows have done it too, where it's like, oh, that felt like a good finale, but overall, season 8 was a mixed bag for me. I feel like it could have been handled better, and I'm interested what's going on for season 9. So, what are your thoughts on season 8? Let me comment, so make sure like, share, and subscribe. As for season 9, I'm going to do something I don't usually do. This is probably going to make it easier for me to talk about certain things. I'm going to do each episode as it goes on. I'll watch the episode, I'll give my review, put it out, and then once all the episodes are done, I'll do a full season review and just my whole thoughts on the season as a whole. But yeah, this was a mixed bag for me. But thank you for watching. I'm Scotty, and I'll see you in the next one.